he's not so happy these days with ABC and that plane situation. You know the plane situation, right? The plane that Qatar wants to give him, and he's willing to take it because he's like, hey, why should I charge taxpayers all this money for a plane that they're willing to give me? Well, ABC's not so happy about it. So ABC got an earful from the president over the weekend, who wrote, why doesn't Chairman Bob Iger, that Bob Iger is head of ABC News by being head of Disney, do something about ABC fake news, especially since I just won a $16 million suit based on the fake and defamatory reporting of little George Slopadopoulos. He was given warnings, but just couldn't resist and couldn't be restrained by management. Now I see they are at it again, and I again give these sleeves bags fair warning. The wonderful country of Qatar has agreed to invest more than $1.4 trillion, wow, in the United States of America, deserves much better than misleading fake news. Everyone, including their lawyers, has been told that ABC must not say that Qatar is giving me a free Boeing 747 airplane, because they are not. Instead, and as fake news, ABC fully knows and understands the highly respected country of Qatar is donating the plane to the United States Air Force Defense Department, and not to me, he writes in all caps. And by doing so, they are saving our country and the American taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars. ABC fake news is one of the worst. So he came out swinging. Let's go back just a couple of days ago. The ABC reporter pushing him in this exchange on the plane.
Has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane. It's like from a different planet. And it's close to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous. And it ended up being a total mess, a real mess. And when I came back, I said, by the way, what's going on with the Boeings that are coming in? Well, sir, they're way behind. And they are. They're way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden. And it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones. I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And
he wants to do the deal. Okay, bottom line. And yet reporters are saying, well, this is a conflict, this is a conflict, this is a conflict. He's like, how is it a conflict? It's for the Department of Defense. This came up in his interview with Brett Baer. He got a little bit testy with the Fox News reporter because the Fox News reporter brought it up again. He's like, why do you keep bringing this thing up? Listen.
But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar Boeing jet. And I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just telling you
we
back
can talk
home.
about it again. You ready?
Briefly.
You ready?
No, I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers. Yeah.
They're giving it to the Defense Department.
To be very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones because Boeing is very late. Boeing is sadly...
Did you talk to the CEO while you were...
I did. I said, let's get, you know, in the meantime, I got them 160 planes to build. I said, how about the two that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. You know, it's not like building a 747 normal.
I mean, we could put people on the moon before
but let me tell you,
the Boeing Air Force One is
People
done.
knew I was angry at Boeing. A lot of people know. These people know. They're very smart down here. And they suggested if we can do anything at all to help. Because we have 40-year-old planes right now. You know, our Air Force One is actually two planes. It's two 747s.
I don't think people know that. 40 years. It's 4 decades old, the current Air Force One.
They're 40 years old. They're more than that. I think they're 42 now. I've been saying 40 for 2 years. They're 42. We shouldn't have a 42-year-old plane. And you know what? There's nothing unsafe about it. In many cases, they're just as safe or more safe. They're heavier. You know, they throw out a lot more for the environmentalists out there to turn them. They throw out a little more than a modern engine would throw out. But they're, you know, they're good, but they're 42 years old. And when we landed, I saw the other day, when we landed, we parked right next to the 747 of Qatar. And we parked next, there was another 747, 2 or 3 of them, which the Arab world has. And when you look at a new 747 and you look at a plane that's 42 years old, not even the same plane, the other ones are bigger and sleeker and sharper, and it doesn't look right. We have a problem with Boeing. Now, again, it's a very complex plane. It's a much different plane than a normal plane would be. Okay. And they're doing a great job. They're coming back, and they're coming back strong. But I'm angry about them for the 2 planes. They should be able to knock them off in no time, and it's, you know, they're not able to do that. And he said, great gentleman, Tamim, he said, I would like to help if you want. I said, how can you help? Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, you have been, and he doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there.
Base.
Look, right next to Iran, and he is right next to, he's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here, but that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to it. And he said, your country has been very good to us. I would love to do something to help with this situation you have with Air Force One. I said, that's nice. What do you suggest? And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force.
This is important, guys. This is important because this is the distinction that ABC and other reporters are getting wrong. Listen.
Whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. You know, it's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned.
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they won't want it. Plus, they'll have the other 2 planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you.
I asked the Prime Minister about it specifically. And he said, you know, he didn't understand the reaction back home. And, you know, he made that clear.
I think he was insulted, actually. He made a gift to help somebody that has helped them. It was so nice as a gesture. And you know, the people here, to show you how it's crazy, they'd like me to pay $1 billion. I'd rather pay $1 billion and get 10 fighter jets instead of giving $1 billion when it's not necessary.
The goal is to save the U.S. taxpayer money, but somehow the media is not okay with that. Look, he makes a compelling argument, and that's why he's so frustrated with Bob Iger and ABC News, because they're just sort of failing to see the forest for the trees, and they keep saying that somehow it's going to be his plane, his place, his plane. He's like, no, it's not my plane. The plane belongs to the Department of Defense. It came up again. This is last week with Hannity, and he can't get little Georgie out of his mind.
On Steffa, I call him George Slopadopoulos, the George Slopadopoulos show on ABC. ABC's really bad.
I call him Little Georgie, so we both have our own little nickname.
No, but he's a bad guy. But he's a bad guy. We had to pay me $16 million, so that's good.
My favorite was the interview with the guy. You didn't pick David Muir or Stephanopoulos. I don't even know who you are.
I had no idea.
I don't know if the media knows how to deal with all the access they finally have, which they haven't had in a long time.
I had no idea who he was, but he got a little nasty, so I explained that I just don't know who you are. Who are you? They actually gave me a choice of anybody at ABC, and I picked this guy, Moran, because I never heard.
George Slopadopoulos, Little George, or as I like to say, Georgie Poo. Little Georgie Poo, right? He's like little Georgie Poo. Anyway, the Terry Moran one, that was unbelievable and actually extraordinarily funny. So before we get to what's going on with Biden, which we have to talk about, just a little levity for you.
Wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
over that. Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
I just had to show you that again. Unbelievable. So he's really getting annoyed about ABC. Let's just say, ABC all around has been such a disaster. He did get the $16 million in settlement for his library because of Slopadopoulos. And now ABC is really stuck on the plane thing. And he's like, it's not for me. It's for the people. It's for the Department of Defense. And he's just getting sick and tired of it. None of it is good, of course, for ABC News, because the FCC is breathing down their back in an investigation into their DEI practices. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if you actually saw a whole new thing happen with ABC News in which they really do decide to get rid of the company because it's not worth the headache. It is so not worth the headache in light of all that is going on. Big news to report right now. This just coming in. The CBS News president has just announced that she is stepping down. This is believed to be related to some kind of settlement deal that is happening possibly over 60 Minutes. Don't forget, 60 Minutes got sued by the president for something like $20 billion because of their reporting, and in his estimation, very false reporting because of the way that they edited that interview. Remember, with one Kamala Harris getting the benefit of clearly some people that wanted to make her sound very, very smart, smarter than she is. And so they managed to kind of massage an interview, and in doing so, in the president's estimation, were effectively trying to manipulate the election. So this news, as I said, just crossing right now We've got the CBS News chief leaving the company amid expectations that CBS is getting closer to some kind of settlement deal with the president. Don't forget, they need to get approval from the FCC for that Skydance merger deal, and that's worth like billions and billions of dollars and may actually be the entire future of the company. Like, I don't know if they even survive if they don't get that deal. And so Sherry Redstone is very much a proponent of having that deal. And the one thing that seems to probably be in the way is the sort of stamp of approval from the FCC. The other thing that's in the way is this outstanding lawsuit from the President of the United States against 60 Minutes and CBS. And so we saw already that Bill Owens, who was over at 60 Minutes, he stepped down a couple of weeks, you'll recall. And he said it was because he felt that he could no longer be totally impartial in his job. And, you know, he's a journalist with a capital J, et cetera. And now he has other people breathing down his back, probably one Sherry Redstone, who wants to get the deal done. And his talent that he produced, Scott Pelley, went onto the air and announced all this, leading me to actually believe that I would not be surprised if 60 Minutes actually goes bye-bye altogether. After all, I don't think this show could succeed in the real world on its own. I think the time is kind of come and gone for that genre of news that's very slow. Everybody speaks very slow. It's very heavily scripted. It's very heavily edited, obviously. Kamala, that one, right? That whole soundbite thing that was edited and re-edited and somehow made her sound like she knew what she was talking about, sort of, not really. But nonetheless, they may find themselves in a very vulnerable position. So this is the woman who was running CBS News. Her name is Wendy McMahon. She is the second, if you would, high-profile departure now there at the company, at Paramount Global, which owns CBS News and is, as I said, trying to settle that $20 billion lawsuit with Donald Trump. And it's really critical that that gets settled so that they can move on and do this merger with Skydance. Skydance is a company owned by Larry Ellison's son, actually. The suit had alleged that the network deceitfully edited that 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris in order to make her sound better. The network said, no, this is just what we do every time. And he's like, well, you know, you wouldn't have afforded me the same opportunity. Don't forget, the resolution of the suit could help Paramount perhaps get closer to closing its merger deal with Skydance, which requires approval from the FCC. Now, Wendy McMahon is said to have clashed with Sherry Redstone, who runs Paramount, over the network's coverage of the war between Israel and Hamas. There was a very sort of anti-Israel bias that was becoming apparent on the air. And so that was something that was an issue for this particular woman. Then you had the CBS stuff. So just a whole series of things, if you would, coming up over and over and over again, leading perhaps to now her departure, suggesting that maybe a settlement deal with Donald Trump is getting closer and closer. Don't forget the $20 billion price tag on that one. So the CBS News president stepping down.